Welcome to the conversation. I am Shannon Taylor, the Executive Director, and I'm joined tonight. I will save the name of the extra special feature in the middle here to our co-hosts, Joan Moossy to my left, and of course Paul is at the controls as ever from Let Them Talk.
Now, do the viewers see the resemblance? I'm going to just go over here.
If you can guess the guest's name.
Right. We're introducing my dad, Paul DeRienzo Sr. Welcome. First visit to Let Them Talk.
Thanks.
Welcome.
And the conversation.
The conversation.
Because tonight we're going to do a joint show. We're going to have Mr. DeRienzo here on the show, The Conversation, that Shannon's going to host, and then we're going to come back again at 8 o'clock, and we're all going to be here for Let Them Talk. So stick with us, and
we're adding class. We're finally bringing class onto this show. You've been stuck with me, I don't know how many years, and now we've moved several notches up at once. We've had Paul and Julie.
Spot here.
and you see how class comes well dressed and well poised and everything here. And so listen carefully to what's going to come. I'm going to turn it over now to Joni to bring up the subject.
All right, great. Because we want to talk about growing up in New York. You grew up in Brooklyn, attended public schools in Brooklyn.
Of course.
Went on to become an engineer.
Yes.
And traveled the world
Indeed.
in your engineering career. So let's start in Brooklyn. Your family came from Italy.
Yes. On my side.
Yep. And settled in what part of Brooklyn?
What is known as Fort Greene.
Okay.
And specifically Adelphi Street, which is close by the Brooklyn Navy Yard.
Oh, all right.
And Brooklyn Navy Yard played a big role in the early part of my life. And
in the World War II fight as well, right?
Yeah, I wasn't in the war. I was kind of young for that.
Right, a little bit too young. Mm-hmm.
But I spent part of my initial career at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, specifically the materials laboratory after graduating from Brooklyn Poly. I beg your pardon. Then became known as Polytechnic University, and then was taken in as part of the New York University, and they are now the Polytechnic University of New York, Polytechnic.
We've done programming. Our organization many times brings judges into universities or students from universities to the courts, and we've worked with them a couple of years ago.
Oh, that's wonderful. Good.
Fine institution. I wish you were there.
It was a great part of my life. I enjoyed that very much. I never regret attending Brooklyn Poly. It was a stone's throw from where I was born, where we lived. Could walk there. Sometimes take the crosstown trolley car. Does anybody know the crosstown trolley car?
Well, we know that the Brooklyn Dodgers got their name from the Brooklyn Trolley Dodgers, right?
Is that right?
Yeah.
That I didn't know.
That was true.
And
did you always know you wanted to be an engineer, or?
Absolutely.
You did?
In fact, it was so emblazoned in my heart and in my mind. I'll put it in perspective. My mother and I were walking down the street to pay the mortgage payment on the house on a Saturday afternoon, hand in hand, and I was maybe 12 years old, walking along Fort Greene Park and DeKalb Avenue, and she turns to me and she says, "Do you want to be a priest?" And I said, "No, Mom, I'd like to get married and raise children, but I want to go to the school." And I turned and we were just passing Brooklyn Tech. So that's how ingrained it was.
How old were you?
About just ready to graduate from PS 67, which was the school, I think it still exists. It's right on St. Edward's Place in Brooklyn, right next to the church there that sits in a plaza by itself. A beautiful church and a beautiful location at the one end of Fort Greene Park. So that was the school I was attending for 7th and 8th grade. Started at PS 12. This must have been built just after the Civil War. It was an incredibly old, beautiful old school. There was only 3 houses away from where we lived. That was
Oh,
very
that's
convenient.
easy. Nice and easy.
But it went to 6th grade, and then you had to move to PS 67, which was 15-minute walk away, 20-minute walk away.
Paul doesn't have it that easy.
No, I gotta go. I have to travel like an hour to work, which is not really that bad. I don't mind doing that in the Bronx, a slightly different borough, and but you know, it's interesting to see that, you know, for what people say and whatever they think, that you can have a successful career and start off in the New York City public school system.
Oh, I
And
think
really,
a lot of
it really
people,
gets
yeah.
a short shrift sometimes, but there's a lot of dedicated teachers, I can tell you, in the
I would
school
take
system.
issue with anyone who would complain or
Absolutely.
argue about that. Of course, times have changed, the school system has changed, but as it turns out, I didn't attend Brooklyn Tech. And what I did was attend Boys High School. And as I mentioned before the program, that I received what I consider to be the finest academic education. I couldn't have paid for a finer. It was just broadly based in the arts, in the science, so to speak, and in all aspects of it. They had a chess club, a Latin club, a math club, you name it. You could enter into any one of those venues that pleased you, and you would meet people that you would enjoy being with and stimulated by, and the likes of that. And the teachers were equally.
They still have dynamic teachers. The clubs vary. We work with that school now too in a different building, and we bring them into the courts. And tomorrow, in the criminal term with Judge Dowling, and in the criminal court with the court officers and Judge Miller and supervising court attorney Hiram Bell, we have students from John Jay through Kingsborough coming. And we will follow with students from the Democracy Academy and from this school that you mentioned. From your roots over there, we are now bringing students and judges back and forth. Did such programs exist in your day?
Well, no, not that I can recall.
See? You didn't have that.
No.
You didn't have
Not
that. You
that I
missed out
recall.
on the courts, but you only had 1 or 2 judges.
By the same token, I can't recall a teacher, a male teacher in any event. We did have female teachers in those days.
That's right,
I
much
studied
more.
Italian with a lady teacher, and French. with a
Oh,
lady.
really? Okay.
I'll never forget her name. It was Madame Cousirat. I love to say
How do
her
you
name.
remember her name? That?
Oh, yes. She was just wonderful teacher, and she knew her French. She was born French, and she knew.
You remember a French teacher?
Oh yes, oh yes. I remember a lot of teachers there.
Here,
French
Dad, I'm broadcasting right now. We're still talking. People can still hear us, but here's a picture of you. Why don't you describe this picture which we found?
Oh, okay. This
But
is great.
you don't grow up in Brooklyn without an acquired, if not inherent, love of the game of baseball.
Oh,
In this case, it's the game of softball. Why softball? Because the very few baseball fields to play on in Brooklyn at that time, and they were always monopolized by these semi-professional teams. So we played in the backyards of the school, on the asphalt court, or in City Park, which was asphalt, and it was easy to get on the field and play every weekend. And it was a camaraderie. All the young fellows from the neighborhood loved to. It just gave us an opportunity to be together and play together.
Now, is that a baseball bat or is that a stick?
Well, it's a softball bat.
Oh,
Who's
Tends to be
batting?
narrow, me.
that's
Not you.
Yes, it is.
Let's take a look
The
there.
occasion of the photograph, though, was
We'll-
after playing in our, normal play clothes all these years, we finally got to the point that we got our own team jackets.
Oh, wow.
And that was the day we came home from Fulton Street with the jackets, the Adelphi Robins, emblazoned on our maroon jackets, and we just couldn't wait to show ourselves off, and that was one of the poses that...
And it was called the Robbins, your team. the
Yeah.
Adelphi and Adelphi's the street you were
Yes.
living on.
That's
Why
the street
Robins,
right there.
I don't know, because
Hey, it's a good one.